We are about to begin the service for Mr. Joshua Sachs. I would ask any of you who have cell phones or any other noise-making device to please turn them to the off position. Officiating today will be Rabbi Rollis Wiesenthal.
Thank you. We're going to start with reading some Psalms in English. Happy is the one who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is the Torah of the Lord, meditating in God's Torah day and night, and will be like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, whose leaf will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Not so the wicked, who are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked shall not survive judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord loves the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed. A song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God makes me lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for God's name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for all the length of my days. Michtam LeDavid, guard me, God, for in you I have taken refuge. For you have said to the Lord, you are my Lord, I have no good beyond you. As for the holy ones who are in the earth, and the mighty in whom is all my desire, their sorrows will multiply. Those that run to other gods, their blood libations will I not pour out, nor take their names upon my lips. The Lord is my allotted portion and my share. You have sustained my fate. Portions have fallen to me in pleasant places. Lovely indeed is my estate. I will bless the Lord who has given me counsel. My conscience admonishes me at night. I have set the Lord before me always. Because God is at my right hand, I shall not falter. Therefore my heart rejoices, and my entire being exalts. Also my body will rest secure. For you will not abandon me to the grave, nor will you let your devout one see destruction. You will make known to me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. There is delight at your right hand for eternity. So now I understand that members of Joshua Sachs' family have prepared remarks. So have you decided who goes first? I don't know. Okay. We'll hear from Mrs. Sachs.
Thank you, Rabbi Wiesenthal. I appreciate it. Hello, and thank you very much for coming here today to be with our family at this difficult time. Both those of you who are with us at the cemetery, and also those of you who are joining us by video from across the country and around the world. Your presence is deeply meaningful to us, as I'm sure it would have been to my father. My dad never considered himself to be a sociable person, and often regretted his small and shrinking social circle. Yet over the years, he amassed a sizable contingent of truly great friends whom he would stay in touch with meaningful contact for years. My father was a great communicator who no doubt maintained lengthy correspondence with many of you over the years. But not only did he write and express himself well, he had an original and creative thought process and an uncanny ability to detach himself from nearly any situation and evaluate it objectively. As a self-proclaimed monarchist, he was never confined to the usual approaches and parameters of the political sphere, which resulted in interesting insights into the issues facing this country. As with all people, my dad was not perfect, nor did he ever purport to be. But what I admired so much in him is that he was uncommonly straightforward about his own shortcomings, readily admitted when he did things wrong, and when he identified something as an issue, he always strove to improve and grow and try not to repeat it, which is an aspect that I really admire and try myself to internalize. Music was really the language in which my father thought, felt, and communicated. He would often play the cello for 5 or 6 hours a day, and the 3 orchestras he played in formed the structure around which his week was based. His knowledge of music was extraordinarily deep, and I've always felt that his one working ear could hear far more nuance in music than my 2 ears ever could. Going to the opera with him was always a real treat, not just for the performances themselves, but also the hours of critical analysis over every aspect of the production, music, and direction afterwards. His musical life directly influenced my own life and career path, and for that, I am grateful. My father dedicated the bulk of his professional career to defending murder cases and had an appropriately dark sense of humor. Ask a Mortician was one of his favorite vlogs, and he loved nothing more than spending hours walking around Chicagoland cemeteries. When I was in the 7th grade, he introduced me to his legal textbook on forensic pathology and made sure that I knew my entry wounds from my exit wounds, and he could go on at great length talking about stiffs, corpses, cadavers, and so on. I realize at this point it's difficult to prove, but judging with the relish he discussed the topic in his life, I can't help but think that he would sort of get a kick out of being here right now. But the fact that he was so in touch with his own mortality and prepared for death does not really make the loss any easier for us, his friends and his family. Each one of you had your own relationship with him and your own friendships, and the loss is great, and that loss is very personal. We, our family, have been overwhelmed by the outpouring of support for us at this time, and I'd like to offer special thanks to some of the people who helped him the most in his final illness. I'd like to thank his tireless and dedicated team at Evanston Hospital, in particularly Dr. Guidron, Dr. Smukler, Dr. Wong, for their expert and caring treatment these past months and years, and to his friends Ariel Zamaripa and Arnie Rosenshine, among others, for the many hours spent with him over these past very difficult years. I'd like to thank also my wife, Simi Hinden, without whose logistical support I never would have made it to Chicago in time to see my father. And most importantly, to my sister Shoshana, who has been with him 24/7 throughout the pandemic and dealt with all of the challenges and all of the unpleasant tasks of caregiving and caretaking during a terminal illness. It is truly selfless work that she's performed, and she deserves the recognition and the thanks. I know many of you have asked what you can do to help, and I think the answer is to keep in touch with Shoshana in the weeks, in the months ahead. All of you gathered here, everyone on the video conference, we'll spend the next week catching up with friends and family during our Shiva, both in our yard and Zoom, to discuss my dad's life. We'd love to hear your memories of him, and I'll be in town for several weeks, so I'd be glad to see you. But after that, Shoshana still has plenty of work ahead, so please, thank you for coming and stay in touch. Unfortunately, my sister Sarah was not able to make it in from New Jersey today for the funeral, so she sent some remarks that she would like to share. She says, "Though we've not always been close, my father has given me several precious gifts over the course of our relationship, and in turn, these gifts have made me a better, happier person, and for that I am truly grateful. Through as many medical battles, I got an up-close look at how fortunate we are each day that we wake up healthy and loved. Joshua's health struggles taught me to truly treasure each moment and to take nothing for granted. My relationship with Joshua also helped me set priorities in my life and recognize what is most important and how I want to focus my time. My children are the direct beneficiaries of this clarity, and I am a better mother because of him. Music and the joy it brings to hear and play, it run deep in my family and pleases me to no end to see that appreciation and talent passed on from Joshua to the next generation and my son, Ben. Finally, getting to know Louis and Shoshana, as well as Simi and Noah, have been and will continue to be a great source of personal joy, and by far my very favorite gift of all from Joshua. Time is fleeting, and there is no better way to spend it than with those you love doing the things that bring you happiness. I'm grateful to think Joshua was able to spend so much time doing things he loved in life, and I will miss him deeply. I would like to invite his friend Arnie Rosenstein to share some remarks.
It was my privilege to call Joshua one of my closest friends for almost 20 years. It's hard to distill that into just a few words, but I keep coming back to these. Joshua was the sort of friend who doesn't come along every day. His curiosity and integrity ran deep. We came from different intellectual paths. Joshua from history, philosophy, and the law. I from the sciences. But as close friends do, we found much in common. Even when we didn't agree, we came to trust each other's instinct, as close friends do. We came to trust each other's instincts as guideposts. So many times Joshua's reasoning and patience, surely honed in decades of practicing courtroom law, served as a welcome counterbalance for me in a world which too often seems to be spinning off its axis. Joshua and I also shared a love of music. I as a listener, Joshua with the greater skill to make music himself. I had the pleasure of seeing him perform many times over the years, of meeting a number of his friends and colleagues, and of long conversations about musicians we admired, of memorable performances in the past, of those we would yet love to see. And Joshua was one of the most determined people I have ever known, a trait which served him well through far more than his share of medical challenges. He managed not just to overcome them repeatedly, but to thrive in spite of them. And so when the illness which has taken Joshua from us reasserted itself 2 years ago, unthinkably just after the loss of his mother, Henrietta, another remarkable friend, Joshua's fierce determination carried him through months of treatment and recuperation to a year of remarkable recovery. To watch what Joshua made of that time, despite ongoing challenges, was an inspiration I can scarcely describe. Not just his return to helping his legal colleagues with open cases, or even my personal pleasure in once again sharing coffee breaks and long walks and animated conversations with my old friend. Joshua also managed to return in earnest to his beloved cello, long hours of practice, and commuting across Chicago to rehearse and perform with multiple orchestras. A life well lived indeed. Like all of us, especially Shoshana, Louis, Sarah, David, and Cheryl, I wish that Joshua could have been with us for longer, but I consider myself very fortunate to have known him as long as I did, and fortunate to count his loyal family among my friends now. It's an old honored tradition to remember those we have lost with the Hebrew words Zichrono Livracha, often translated, may his memory be for a blessing. We may take them as a kindness, a sign of respect, a wish, and a hope. For me, they are also a certainty. I miss my friend Joshua, but his memory is surely a blessing.
Thank you all so much for being here. I just want to say a few words from my father's brother, David, my uncle. David wrote, "Everyone who knew my brother was impressed by his intelligence and his capacity for looking at things objectively, a bit from a distance. This was the way he approached his own illness, being analytical and honest with himself, not allowing his thinking to be blurred by emotions, certainly not by self-pity. People who knew him less well were astounded by his vast knowledge in history and his ability to read and remember from his wonderful home library. Fellow amateur musicians whom he played with in 3 orchestras admired him. Fewer people are aware of his compassion and his understanding of human nature. I have to tell a story that brings to light some aspects of his character which remain deep and less visible. When he was in the 3rd or 4th grade, he befriended a girl named Carol Chapman. She was a peculiar looking and acting girl, appeared a bit dull, and was, of course, ridiculed by the other children. My brother would invite her to our house and talk with her, acting more like a father than another child. This did not arouse respect from his fellow pupils, but I perceived that he was displaying maturity well above his age. Carol Chapman died a few years later, and our parents explained to us that she had an inoperable brain tumor. On our last visit, I asked if he remembered her, and he answered that she was one of the most important influences in his life. She taught him to take responsibility that no one else would take. This is the best example I can think of to tell who my brother was. Yihiyeh Zichrono Baruch. That's from his brother David. And I wrote some things too. I'm hoping that I can read them with the glare on the screen. I think I can. Okay, this is what I wrote. One of my father's favorite songs was a song by Franz Schubert, in which a lone monk in his cell looks out at the valley below and sees the glittering armies gloriously marching towards Jerusalem. As he watches them march by until they disappear in the distance, he seems regretful at first that he can't join them, but eventually realizes that he too, in his own way, is a soldier just as much as they are, although he never leaves his home. And there was indeed something monastic about my father. He sometimes even used that word about himself, although he also sometimes used the term wizardly. But I think monastic fits. The hidden life that brings beauty into the world simply for existing, even if the people beyond the grill don't know it exists, or if they do, don't entirely understand it. My father also often wondered aloud, not unlike the monk in the song, and wondered particularly in his last years, whether he had taken the right course in being so comparatively hidden, or whether he ought to have done more in an active public role to improve his community. He was a fundamentally modest person. His charity was never ostentatious, rarely even conventional. But in his quiet, behind-the-scenes manner, in his decades as a criminal defense attorney in some of the most serious cases in Illinois, he performed immense and difficult acts of charity, day after day, and to those who are often the least sympathetic people, the hardest to give to, in some ways the least deserving. In Hebrew, the words for justice and charity are essentially the same word. And I would often think of that, hearing or seeing him at work, how behind the dry, unemotive legal wording, how much he was doing for people whom even the usual soft-hearted charitable types would run from. And to him, there was nothing heroic about it. To him, it was just doing his job. He too was a soldier in his own way, though never leaving home. My father had his own world that he inhabited, by which I don't at all mean that he lived in an illusion or that he made up a world that wasn't real. Rather, that we all at some level create the worlds that we inhabit and make them real in the lives we lead based on those ideas. And my father, in his life and in his mind, and in his life of the mind, created a world that was profoundly principled, elegant, and for all his philosophical pessimism, incredibly beautiful and optimistic. He was also an artist at the core of his being. When people would ask what he did, he'd say first and foremost that he was a cellist and a lawyer only by day. He never, as far as I know, earned a cent from music, and he wasn't implying that he did, but he was making it known that music was at the center of his identity. He was an artist in other ways as well. Words mattered to him as intensely as if he were a poet. Language was never only a matter of utility in getting a point across, but always an artistic creation in his writing and speech. The wrong word or an inelegant phrasing pained him. It wasn't snobbery. He just had such an innate sensitivity to language, the way maybe a hound dog experiences a whole spectrum of scent that the rest of us aren't aware of. And though he was a passionate person, he was also understated. Beyond his sensitivity to language, his was also a fundamentally ethical nature, and his words were carefully chosen and measured out of a desire to say only those things that he could stand by entirely. As a child, I took it for granted that all parents were like my father, and it wasn't until I grew older that I began to realize how rare an individual he was, and how fortunate I was. I consider it a great gift also that I realized what a special person he was while we still had many years together. He made a tremendous impact on me as a person, and I hope that I can carry along some of his best qualities and the most beautiful pieces of the worlds he created and lived during the course of my own life. He was an exceptional person to have as a parent, and I will always be grateful that he was mine. If anyone else has anything to say, you're more than welcome to come up.
So at this point in the service, we will proceed with lowering the casket into the ground, and I ask people to come pick up a shovel and shovel at least 3 shovelfuls of earth in, and then put the shovel inserted either into the earth or lay it on the ground. We don't pass misfortune from hand to hand, so we put it down on the ground. And hopefully we will proceed until the grave is at least filled in most of the way.
had a chance, we can have the thing.
In English, the rock perfect is God's word. Sorry, I will proceed with Tziduk Hadin. It follows now while the grave is being filled. The rock perfect is God's work, for all God's paths are just. God of faith, without iniquity, righteous and fair is God. The rock perfect in every work, who can tell God what to do? God rules below and above, causes death and restores life, lowers down to the grave and raises up. The rock perfect in every action, who can tell God how to act? God whose word generates deed, do undeserved kindness with us. In the merit of Isaac, who was bound like a lamb, hearken and act. Righteous one in all ways, the rock who is perfect, slow to anger and full of compassion. Please have mercy and spare parents and children, for yours, Master, are forgiveness and compassion. Righteous are you, Lord, to cause death and to restore life, for in your hand is the safekeeping of all spirits. Far be it from you to erase our memory. May your eyes compassionately take consonance of us, for yours, Master, are compassion and forgiveness. For a person, whether a year old or whether living 1,000 years, of what profit is it? As if never having and never have been shall that person be. Blessed be the true judge who engenders death and revives. Blessed is God, for God's judgment is true. God scans everything with God's eye and recompenses the person according to the account and the just sentence. And all must give God's name acknowledgement. We know, Lord, that your judgment is righteous. You are righteous when you speak and pure when you judge. There is no complaining about the manner of your judgment. Righteous are you, Lord, and your judgments are fair. True judge, judge of righteousness and truth. Blessed is the true judge, for all of God's judgments are righteous and true. The soul of all the living is in your hand. Righteousness fills your right and your power. Have mercy on the remnant of the sheep of your hand, and say to the angel of death, hold back your hand. Great in counsel and abundant in deed, your eyes are open upon all the ways of the children of mankind, to give each one according to their ways and according to the fruit of their deeds. To declare that the Lord is just, my rock, in whom there is no wrong. The Lord has given and the Lord has taken away. Blessed is the name of the Lord. And God, the merciful one, will forgive iniquity and not destroy, frequently withdrawing anger and not arousing the entireness of God's rage. Well, now I'll say the Keil Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer, and then we'll recite a psalm, and then it'll be time for the mourners to say Mourner's Kaddish. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein B'Meromim, Hamatzei Menucha Nechano Al Kanfei HaShechino, B'Ma'alos Kedoshim U'Tahorim, Gezohar Horkia Mazhirim Es Nishmas Yehoshua Ben Shlomo, Sheholach Le'olamo, Ma'avur She'anachnu Mispalalim B'ad Haskoras Nishmaso V'Gan Eden Tehei Menuchaso. V'chein ba'al rachamim, yastireihu v'seisa k'novav le'olamim, v'yitzror achayim es nishmaso, Adonai yonachalaso, v'yanuach v'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar amen. God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant proper repose on the sheltering wings of your presence in the lofty levels of the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, upon the soul of Joshua, son of Solomon, who has gone to his world, and whose memory we pray. May his repose be in paradise. May the Master of Compassion bring him under the cover of God's wings and bind his soul in the bond of life. May the Lord be his heritage, and may he repose on his resting place in peace. And let us respond, Amen. So we will say a psalm. First in the English, Psalm 16. Michtam LeDavid, guard me, God, for in you I have taken refuge. You have said to the Lord, you are my Lord, I have no good beyond you. As for the holy ones who are in the earth, and the mighty in whom is all my desire. Their sorrows will multiply, those that run to other gods. Their blood libations will I not pour out, nor take their names upon my lips. The Lord is my allotted portion and my share. You sustain my fate. Portions have fallen to me in pleasant places. Lovely indeed is my estate. I will bless the Lord who has given me counsel. My conscience admonishes me at night. I've set the Lord before me always, because God is at my right hand. I shall not falter. Therefore my heart rejoices, and my entire being exults. Also my body will rest secure. For you will not abandon me to the grave, nor will you let your devout one see destruction. You will make known to me the path of life, and your presence is fullness of joy. There is delight at your right hand for eternity. In Hebrew, Michtam LeDavid, Shamri Kachas Sibach, Amati Adonai Yotov, Al-Sasi Allah Yichliktoshim Asher Ba'aretz Hemo, Adir Kol Chefetz Bam. Irva Atzvosam, Achar Maharu, Abhalasich Niskeihem, Midam Lalasa Shmosam Al Svasai, Adonai Melos Chalki V'Chalsi, Al Tomich Kor Alai, Chavalim Naflu Lib Ani'imim, Af Nachalash Shafar Alai, Avoreches Adonai Asher Yotzani, Af Leilos Yisroni Chil Yosai, Shivisi Adonai Nenegdi Samid Ki Mimino Baal Emot, Nochein Samach Libi Vayogel Kibodi, Af Bisori Ishkam Novetach, Ilosa Azov Nafshi Lishol, Velosi Tain Chasidach Lir Al Shachas. Tell the Eini Arach Hayim, Savas Machos Esponecho, the Imos Mimincha Netzah. Well, now say the mourners will say Kaddish. The mourners Kaddish, you want to say the longer one or just regular mourners Kaddish? Okay. Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabo Mevorach Le'olam Olamei Olamayo.
Yehei Shemei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam Olamei Olamayo. Yisbarach V'yishtabach V'yishkapar V'yishraman V'yitatzei V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei Dikudashah V'yichom. Ela Mi'ol V'chata V'sharata V'shpechata V'nachamata Da'amiran V'alama Yimaru Amen.
Amen.
Yehei
Amen. Amen. If I could ask those who are here, aside from the mourners, to form two rows, facing each other. And then we'll ask the mourners to pass. And we respond, Hamavo Yinachem Eschem
Our service is concluded. Please note memorial contributions we made to the Chicago Hesed Fund or the Evanston Savoyers. Thank you. Family should know no more sorrow.